We have now a quorum, so we'll make a start. Members, can I remind you that this meeting will be recorded and ask you to note that mobile phones should be switched off as they interfere with the recording. Tablet devices should be switched to mute. Can I remind members to declare the interest as appropriate throughout the meeting? Can I advise members that we will receive an oral briefing from the Minister today at approximately 2:30 p.m. on the forthcoming priorities for the Department. The Department has asked, and I'm in your hands on this, the Department has asked, is it okay that they come in and take a photograph of the Minister here in the meeting before the start?
Okay.
Okay.
Just the Minister.
Just the Minister, it's not the rest of us now, it's just the Minister. Okay. I advise members that the meeting will move into closed session towards the end of the meeting to discuss the appointment of a special advisor for the inquiry into better regulation. And can I declare the meeting open to the public? Then item 1, any apologies? And item 2, chairperson's business. On this occasion I have no chairperson's business, so we'll move on to item 3. The minutes of the meeting 16th of June 2015 to refer members to the draft minutes of the meeting held on the 16th of June at pages 6 to 10. Are members content that the draft minutes are accurate? Okay, members? If so, I will sign. And item 4, matters arising. Can I refer members to matters arising at pages 13 to 14? Are members content to action matters arising as suggested on the index sheet at page 12? Okay, members? Okay.
Yeah.
We move on to agenda item 5, oral briefing from DARD on EU issues. Can I refer members to the memo from the clerk at pages 16 to 18 and papers from the department at pages 19 to 45? Can I welcome Louise Ward Hunter, head of the Central Policy Group, Paddy Campbell, DPC Fisheries Policy and Grunts Branch, and Colette McMaster, Grade 5 Central Policy. You're very welcome.
Thank you very much indeed.
And
Chair.
I would ask you to take up to 10 minutes to make your presentation, and then there'll be some questions, okay?
Certainly. Thank you very
Okay.
much indeed, Chair. And good afternoon to committee members. You've already introduced my colleagues here, so I'll move straight into our opening comments to you this afternoon. The paper that you have before you gives a brief overview of the Department's input to the Executive's Implementation Report on European Priorities 2014-15. And the European Priorities Report is indeed a draft report which all departments will be required to update in relation to their respective business areas. It is important, though, Chair, if I may draw to your attention, and that indeed of committee members, that it's an executive report, so it remains in draft form at this stage. Some delicacy around that, and it is yet to be agreed and finally formalised. So clearly, that being the protocol, that it needs to be signed off before it can be discussed outside of the executive. My understanding is that it will be agreed sometime later this year. I suppose that's my preamble to explain why I don't believe I'm in a position to discuss in detail the targets and progress towards those targets contained in the report at this moment in time at the broader level. However, of course, I'm very happy to update the committee with respect to the progress that DARD has been making on key areas of work that are mentioned in the report, for example, Horizon 2020, if that's what members would find helpful. I note that before this session, it was indicated to us that the committee would prefer at this stage to focus on European priorities other than those related to CAP reform, and specifically beef labelling regulations and fisheries legislation. And so, along with Colette and Paddy, we'd like to be able to provide you some more information on that in a moment. The Executive Statement of European Priorities details strategic and cross-cutting objectives to focus our EU engagement for 14-15, so that we can better promote our interests, raise our profile and encourage better participation in EU matters, and we very much welcome this initiative. The Department's work in CAP matters clearly has demonstrated to us the importance of being well integrated into EU systems, processes and networks, and having been to Brussels recently myself, I saw at first hand the value of having a hard-working DARD representative on the ground in Brussels, and our colleague there, who who represents the DARD in the Office of the Northern Ireland Executive in Belgium, provides an ear to the ground on all matters EU related and gives us early warning on new developments, as well as facilitating much sought after access to key people within the cabinet of the Commissioner and the wider Brussels network. And our official over there provides that monitoring role, finger on the pulse if you may, and reporting back on the discussions at a range of EU meetings, very much in the interest of furthering the interests of the Department and the Department's key stakeholders. So you will see from the paper that we sent you that under the 14-15 plan, 12 targets fall directly to DARD. 10 have been assessed by the Department as achieved, though clearly this remains subject, as I said before, to executive approval. And 2 targets have been assessed as green amber, or not yet achieved, as work continues to secure the European Commission's approval of our draft RDP for Northern Ireland. And our business plan target is for DARD to achieve that approval by September 2015. If I may, I'd like to turn very briefly to the 2 specific areas which the committee has indicated that you would like to explore with us today. And after I do that, I will pass over to the questions and for my colleagues here to perhaps develop any issues that you would like to take forward. First of all, if I look at beef labelling, the paper that you received sets out the background to the EU Commission's current evaluation of the EU beef labelling rules. The relevant EU regulation is intended to provide consumers with clear information about the origin of beef and veal offered for sale in the EU. And that regulation dates back to 2000 and has not been comprehensively evaluated to date. The Commission's evaluation began in October 2014 and it's expected to conclude early next year, 2016. And the UK is one of the member states where it is intended to draw on national case studies to inform that important analysis. And given the difficulties for the beef industry here last year, DARD plans to provide input to the EU beef labelling review. And while, of course, the evaluation is still at an early stage in terms of UK involvement, if there's anything that you wish to raise about the evaluation, Colette will try and deal with any points that you may have today, or if you would like us, we can follow up with further information after today's meeting. Turning then briefly to the issue of fishing authorisations regulations. These regulations are mainly about ensuring that EU vessels fishing outside community waters comply with control and reporting arrangements agreed between the EU and third countries or set out in international agreements to which the EU is a party. And it also deals with the control and reporting arrangements that third country vessels must adhere to when they are fishing in EU waters. And the Commission has indicated its intention to update and improve these regulations, but any changes are unlikely to have any impact on the Northern Irish fishing fleet. So just 2 very brief introductions to the 2 areas that committee members, I understand, were keen to look at with us. And if I may conclude, Chair, we're happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. We are aware that there are negotiations ongoing between the USA and EU on trade, the TTIP arrangements. One aspect of being negotiated is the trade in beef products. What is the DARD line on TTIP and how are you feeding into these negotiations?
I might just refer to Colette on that one at the moment. Colette, do we have a specific line on that?
Well, on the we are sort of engaged. I mean, I don't have the. I'm not directly involved in that, but the DARD is engaged on the TTIP, and we're actually monitoring just all the sort of developments and so on. I don't have the sort of specific details on the detail of that, but in terms of the international trade more broadly, clearly we're engaged in certainly our veterinary service is very much focused in assisting on forward and progressing the sort of access to markets,
yeah.
and is working closely with DEFRA and on that. And Minister has said that's one of her priorities as well. And she's been involved in the recent trip to China and so on. And there's a range of other sort of inspections have taken place within Northern Ireland, and this is a priority for us.
Yeah, I would take it these negotiations are quite important, so, I mean, it'll be important that they're dealt with at the highest level in the department, I would have thought.
Of course. Of course, and I'm happy to come back to you with a more rounded analysis of what's going on at the moment, Chair.
Yeah,
May even be able to lift it in your next session with Minister. I can speak.
Like, for instance, what you see as the main advantages or disadvantages of Northern Ireland agriculture and industry from TTIP, can you see any? What are the advantages and disadvantages in regard to, or what could be the potential?
Well, I think the issue for us is clearly exploring the always opening up new markets are the very clear advantages. One would imagine that some of the challenges are clearly around all of the issues around regulation and compliance of getting our product in terms of satisfying the necessary export controls. But happy to come back to you on a fuller line on that.
Okay.
Of course.
I would have thought, yes, there's advantage in opening up markets, but you're also opening up the markets the opposite way too.
Yes, in terms of the concept of reciprocity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Joanne?
Thank you, Chair. Could I declare an interest? My husband's a beef farmer. I was very interested in the response received from Minister Coveney from the public to the Chair on EU regulations on country of origin labelling. In relation to beef labelling, what's the position of the Department towards beef on sale in retail outlets which have no country of origin markings or labels? I know your opinions, Louise, to say that beef labelling is designed to provide consumers with clear labelling. That's very, very important.
Yes.
Could you
Well,
touch on that?
well, I certainly believe that the department's position is that transparency for the consumer is paramount. I mean, we have the mandatory labelling. You'll be aware, of course, of the discussions around the potential for voluntary labelling. I'm unsighted on the issue of where there are big gaps on any labels. Sorry, can I just refer back to you again?
Yes. Well, it's been brought to my attention from members of the public, consumers as well as farmers, that meat packs are often on sale in certain outlets
Right.
from Argentina or other South American countries. So I would like clarity around that, because obviously our farmers adhere to very, very stringent regulations, and that's very, very important to give the consumer confidence. But if there's meat on sale with no country of origin, I'm thinking people have said a barbecue pack for £5, for example, with no adequate labelling or country of origin. Is it possible then that meat imported into Northern Ireland could, either by accident or by design, end up being labelled as British beef?
Well, I'll just take some counsel from Colette on that, but I would have thought that the issues around for us in ensuring that there's compliance right the way through, because we would not wish, the department would not wish to see anything that would militate or disadvantage our farmers who are adhering clearly and categorically and are in compliance right the way through. And you'll be fully aware, of course, Mr. Dobson, of the challenges around that. But maybe just take a view from Colette. As far as I would be concerned, this is an issue about pursuing that making sure that rigour applies to everyone.
Are you not aware of it, Louise? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yes. I'm not aware that it has been raised as an issue with us recently. So,
but you're aware of it handling, surely?
I'm not aware that it's an issue. I mean, the regulations are that any beef imported from outside the EU must have the country of origin on the label. So I'm not aware of how or what the circumstances would be if that is.
Well, I can
have an example?
provide you, certainly have details. So are you saying that have any of your meat plant inspectors raised concerns about imported meat being mislabelled?
It's not been drawn to my
it's not drawn
attention.
to our I mean,
No.
it is inspectors from DARD. DARD enforce the beef and veal labelling regulations.
That's actually
certainly.
concerning for me,
Yeah.
the wife of a beef farmer that adheres to all these stringent regulations, that you're not aware of this meat being imported from, as I said, from Argentina or South American countries and been sold at outlets
Without that information hasn't reached me. So I mean, I'm very happy to pick up with if you're content. Any examples that you have, I think that we, of course, would want to explore that very fully.
One would have thought of that was the
bring-
case, the first rule of thumb would be to report to the department.
Yeah.
Yeah. One would have thought that was.
More than happy to.
Well, I will provide
Thank
you.
you.
So you would be concerned with that? That would be a great.
Well, I absolutely. I think there's an issue about if there's regulations and our farmers are in compliance on mandatory. You know, we're seeing that way through the labelling for our farmers and our produce.
That you can understand then
Oh.
as farmers and suppose as maybe even local butchers to a certain extent as well, they're competing and selling top quality produce.
Yes.
That the market has been, there has been, you know, other beef brought in from outside
Yeah.
those countries and not labelled and reaching that market as well.
Well, I think what we would want to do first of all is if we have any examples, understand what they are and where those have been taking place, and make sure that those issues are reconciled against what the EU requirements are for non-EU produce being sold here, and.
That's something you'll certainly investigate.
Yes, if you would please give us the
Okay.
examples. We can pick up on that separately, and I think that that's something which would be of concern to the wider supply chain in Northern Ireland, right the way through to our retailers, of course.
Okay, you say that the evaluation by the Commission is likely to conclude next year, and you plan to provide input into the beef labelling review.
Yes.
And that's certainly something I'd be very, very interested in following up with. Can you give us an indication of how the department then will input into the process, and have you already engaged with DEFRA and the Commission on this?
Yeah, well, I'll maybe take this. I mean, it's the Commission have appointed an external contractor to carry out this evaluation, and that started last October. As part of the scope of the review, then the Commission identified a number of countries where there will be more detailed analysis done in terms of case studies and taking sort of input from a range of stakeholders and national authorities and so on about the actual experience with the existing regulations and so on to assess what the impact will be. And that review, that evaluation, as I understand, will have sort of two main parts to it. And the first is the descriptive part, and the second is where the evaluation actually looks at particular questions, and we'll take that information. So we have already indicated our interest in participating in that, and we've been in contact with DEFRA and also with the Commission. So we're sort of keen to be involved in that part of it. It's not something that has actually started from that point of view for us yet, but this review will continue and conclude in 2016. So it's something that we want to do, particularly given just the recent experience over the past 12 months with issues that have been experienced within the industry with beef labelling. So certainly something we're keen to do. We've already highlighted our interest, and we'll be participating. We can update committee further on that as that sort of progresses.
Okay, finally, Louise, just for a moment clarity, you're saying none of your meat plant inspectors have raised concerns about imported meat being mislabelled. You're not aware of that at all?
What I can say is I'm not aware of it, so in case representations have been made, but they haven't made their way to me.
Could
so
you maybe
just,
check that
I will
out?
check that. So to respond correctly to you, I'm not aware, and I will double check.
If you could double check.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Joe Byrne.
Well, Chairman, following on from the same angle as Joanne has raised, I have to say it's still concerning to people in the farming sector that there is a suspicion that one or two meat processors is importing beef, bulk beef, into Northern Ireland, and they're able to cut it down and process it and sell it abroad again. In particular, there is a suspicion that there's at least 2 meat plants importing beef from Poland, processing it and exporting it, and there's a feeling that that was undermining the beef market in the north of Ireland. So I want to know, what is the relationship with the LMC in relation to their monitoring role and the benefit otherwise that they can bring to the beef industry? And secondly, how much of a challenge is presented in the meat plants to the authenticity and the traceability of the raw product?
Sorry, Chair, can I, sorry, the two questions were, you wanted to have a bit of detail on the monitoring role that LMC has of that. Was the second question there sort of the challenge to?
Yes, what I'm asking is there a robust system presented by meat inspectors employed by the public authorities
Yeah.
to make sure that the authenticity of the raw product is not violating regulations and rules?
Yeah. Could I suggest, Chair, there's a very particular theme emerging here, and if you were content, I would like to come back with a written response to you on your point that you raised earlier on, Mrs. Dobson, but also on this issue. I mean, of course, LMC has an important role representing the interests of the livestock industry, specifically the red meat industry, and of ensuring issues around support and advocacy, compliance, etc. I think on the second point, in terms of is there a robust challenge function in the system, I would like to offer examples of how that is undertaken in a fuller response, and we could do that very swiftly.
And Chairman, further to that, I'm largely not fully informed in all these things, but there would appear to be a loophole in the law that a meat merchant can import raw product into Northern Ireland from fellow EU member states, and then it can be traded to a meat processor, and as a result it can be labelled as bona fide beef product with traceability
Yeah.
and questionable origins are ignored.
I think, if I may, Chair, in light of the seriousness of the issues that are being raised by committee today, in order to give a full answer on and I will be drawing in that the inspector team that we have as well. I'd like to be able to marshal all of that information and give a rounded response to you if members are content. I'll do that as swiftly as I can.
I think certainly it's very important that there is that we are assured that there is a robust situation in place that deals
Absolutely.
with it. As far as I'm aware, you can't stop imports of meat if someone wants to import it, but how it's sold on is a different issue.
I think that's what I'm hearing, and the specific concerns around that. And as I say, would normally like to be able to respond right now, but I think I would like to go away and investigate this, and especially if there's any further information that members might wish to give us.
I think, okay.
Is
I
that
think if
okay?
members has information that should be forwarded.
Chair, just if I may, it could be packaged in Northern Ireland, and the
Yes.
consumer could think they're buying Northern Ireland produce. So I think we need certain clarity, because it could come from anywhere. But if there's a loophole that if it's packaged in Northern Ireland, that's where, as you said earlier, Louise, the public needs transparency and clarity.
That may be the loophole, because I think I was aware of in the past, and still yet there's pork products that are processed in Northern Ireland, but there's none of it actually produced in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, well,
Technically, they're not telling a lie. That's
Yes.
the difficulty.
I think given this, the importance, as we have known, given where we were a number of years ago with the whole horse breeds and the whole issues around provenance, traceability, and as you said, transparency for the consumer, critical. One would certainly have hoped that that is all intact, and I will follow up on that.
Yeah, I mean, you got to understand the concern is farmers in Northern Ireland are made to adhere to strict, very strict protocol in relation to from birth right to
Absolutely.
right to the
Absolutely.
processor and right to the literally to the retailer.
Yes.
It can be traced back right to the farm that, and even to the very cow that the animal was born from. You know, so I mean,
Absolutely.
If there was meat imported and things that were happening that shouldn't happen, that would make a mockery, a total mockery of what we're trying to do in Northern Ireland. And I think it's vital that that is.
Yes. Well, as I say, I would like to go off. I'll investigate the points that members have made and seek to give you clarity on assurances. And having been working with Colette very closely on issues last year on mixed origin beef, this year looking at the challenges around lamb, you can be assured how live we are to the importance of ultimately where labelling takes us. Thank you.
Edwin, yes.
It'd be good to get some clarity because I don't think we've got much in the committee today, to be quite honest. So we've got a series of responses, but not many answers. The chairman mentioned TTIP, and obviously, if we're going to have a more open trading agreement with the North America and the United States in particular, there's different conditions for producing food for the market. So, what sort of stance we're taking, for example, on BST and milk?
I can take that one away, Mr. Poots, and come back, John. I'm afraid I don't have a specific line for you in answer to that, unless Miss Colette can assist me.
And hormone beef and GM cereals, because all of those things are things which currently are not available in Europe. So farmers in Europe do not produce milk with the hormone BST in it. They don't produce beef with hormones in it, nor indeed do they produce grain that's genetically modified.
Yeah.
The United States of America do all of those things.
Yeah.
So if we're going to enter into a trade agreement with another partner, essentially, how can it be on a level playing field if all of those commercial advantages are being used in the production? Because you will get greater livestock gain in beef, you will get greater milk output, and you'll have a lower input operation system for grain farming with GM crops. So where's the level playing field? And if the consumer in Europe didn't want that stuff, and Europe made that decision, why would you enter an agreement with someone that's going to be bringing it in?
I understand the point that you're making, and back to what the chair said about what the issues. It's not simply about opening up access to trade opportunities for us. It's what happens when any sense of reciprocity comes back. So happy to lift those specific points and come back to you.
Yeah, because I think we're still only lately getting rid of the BSE issue in the United States of America. Not that it's good importer of beef in the first instance, but that issue has only been resolved after 20 odd years. But we're expected to turn around and say, oh, yep, all of that's fair enough.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
We have been informed from our EU officer about the EU Commission creating a high-level group on simplification. Former Commissioner Vice President Chalice, I'm told, will chair this group. We're also aware from discussions with Commissioner Hogan when he was here that simplification is on his agenda. What is George's line in this, and how are you interacting with the EU on simplification?
Well, I think that our broader engagement has been through. At the moment, our primary focus, to be honest with you, has been on trying to get the RDP through, but on the massive engagement that we have on that. But in relation to CAP overall, there have continued to be engagements on that. Our colleagues Norman Fulton, Rosebeek New, etc., have been engaging, and Mark Mackerlane. I haven't a specific pat answer for you on the latest update, but again, I can provide that for you, Chair, in terms of the most recent involvement that we've had on it.
Again, I believe it's important that we feed into that.
Yes.
I mean, there's enough bureaucracy, and we are all concerned with the amount of bureaucracy that farmers has to deal with. If there are proposals on the, as I say, the commissioner when he was here did say that he was,
Yes.
it's an issue that he was taking on board and
Yes.
trying to deal with. It's important that our department feeds into that, and that, you know, we do endeavour to ensure that there is simplification of the whole process.
Well, certainly, I mean, Colette has helpfully just reminded me of the last engagement that we had. Of course, we made a bit of progress in terms of simplifying where the original proposals were. I know there's been an acknowledgement that you know the language around simplification is it simply hasn't gone far enough, particularly in relation to greening and moving towards the flat rate payment. I know that Commissioner Hogan, as you've said yourself, Chair, has said that he will look at this issue again. In fact, when I was out in Brussels there quite recently, he reiterated that in Council and the EU Council. That was on the 11th of May. They've agreed it. So I suppose at this stage, our engagement will be about watching what those proposals are coming out and ensuring that we are engaging in a timely way. And that's where I refer to trying to have our person in Brussels make sure that we are able to monitor the opportunities to come through. We'll engage with them as and when we see that those opportunities arising.
Should we not also be feeding in what we see should be possible ways of simplification from our perspective, from the department?
I think we're primed and ready to do that. So I think the point is, Commissioner Hogan, it's about trying to make sure that we're feeding into the appropriate point to him.
Okay. Any other questions?
Chair. Just to follow up, and thank you, Chair. The timescale here, I expect this work to conclude early next year, and you're going to feed into the engage with the Commission and with DEFRA.
So are we still on simplification here, or
We're on
I beg your pardon, are we on back?
the point that Mrs. Dobson was on in relation to the labelling this
Yes.
labelling engagement to move forward. Now, you say, what have you done up to now? Or when do you propose, are you doing any work now, or when do you propose to give the views of the department and to engage with them?
In terms of the review of labelling, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, well, really, whenever that part is happening within, you know, UK is, and Ireland, indeed, are two of the member states that have been identified as among the 7 member states where there's to be some further work done as part of the evaluation, and that certainly.
There appears, Colette, a lot of work to be done there with the 7 member states and this contractor who's taking this on board. But how do you, or when do you choose to feed into that? Like we're only 6 months away from 2016, and we're talking about completing this by 2016, early 2016. Is that it?
That's the Commission's. Yeah, that's the Commission's time frame.
And as yet, the department hasn't fed any of their views in as yet. Is that what you're saying?
Well, we'll be working with the Commission and the contractor on this.
Right.
So, you know, and we've already registered our interest, and actually we've raised this. We've been in contact with DEFRA to say it's something we
But
will
you've
be wanting
registered
to
your
do.
interest, but really nothing concrete has went forward from the department as yet.
I mean, my understanding is, as there are 2 parts to this evaluation. There's the descriptive part of that, where they're going to be the contractor, as part of their terms, has to set out what's been happening in terms of the legislation, what the situation is across the EU and so on. And then there will be, the second part of that is evaluation questions. So they will, I mean, our understanding is they will have certain questions they're going to be seeking answers to and input to. So yes, we're absolutely very interested in being involved in that. They haven't posed questions to us yet, but we've registered our interest in that. So I mean, there's the other, I mean, we're already, as you're aware from, Minister's already highlighted the issues in relation to the beef issues that we've had in Northern Ireland in her discussions with Commissioner Hogan when he was over, and she's written to the Commissioner on that. So we've also separately, I suppose, flagged that there have been issues in Northern Ireland. So, yeah, we're sort of ready to feed into this evaluation, expect it still to happen.
You will get an opportunity then to do that. There's no doubt about that. You will be able to feed that in.
Certainly our intention. I mean, we'll happy to keep the committee updated as things progress over.
I think we should be updated as to what the progress is and what is being fed in on the issues that's being raised through this committee. But,
Happy to.
I say we're not that far away. When you go past the summer months here, Louise, like you're into early 2016 where they talk about completing.
Take your point.
It'd be
Okay.
interesting to see if they do complete 2016.
Yes, and Joe wants a supplementary.
Yeah, Chair, I know that it was highlighted that there was two main issues we were concerned about. But obviously, given the fact that we want farming to have environmental sustainability and economic viability, the question is, on the Nitrates Action Programme, where are we at in relation to finalising that, and what guidelines or otherwise are we hoping to issue to make sure that we can have that twin track of environmental sustainability and economic viability in farming?
So just double checking that I understand the question is where are we on the
Yes.
action programme?
Yes.
Yeah, so was the revised programme was introduced in January of this year, and I think you would agree that the programme certainly has been seeking to build on improvements in water quality and agricultural nutrient management seen in the last couple of programmes. That has been sent, summary of the requirements has been sent to, of the 15-18 programme has been sent to all farmers, and comprehensive guidance will be available on the DARD and DOE websites shortly. And we also clearly, we've one of the challenges in there has been the issue around looking at the sustainable use of poultry litter as well, which of course, as you know, is one of the key issues to manage effectively, given the challenges that poultry litter does impact in terms of the wider environment. So it's been an essential area for us to try and work on that, to try and get the Commission's agreement for the next NAP for 15-18 to ensure that we are showing that we are taking that forward in a sensible and productive way, and that we come up with long-term sustainable solutions. Although we do know that there are other challenges around that which go beyond wider simply than poultry litter alone. But I name that because that's one of the key areas where we've been trying to make headway. So that information's gone out to farmers already.
But has the NAP, the revised NAP and the Nitrates Action Programme been agreed and signed off in Brussels?
Well, it was introduced in January of this year.
So you're in the process then of fully informing the farming community to make sure that there's compliance?
Yes, it was. That leaflet was issued to all farmers in February of earlier on this year.
Thanks, John.
Okay. Okay, I don't think there's any other questions. Thank you very much for your brief. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
And we'll return to you on the other points, Chair, that you raised.
They come through to the committee, yeah.
Yes,
In writing, yeah. Okay,
yes, we'll get them up through the usual channels.
that's okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Must say, members, the level of answers to our questions is very, very poor today. One of the poorest that I ever seen. I think certainly the officials are not up to the brief on this.
Yep.
A lot of issues. I'm not so sure what the members feel we should do with that, but
Chairman, I think it is very disappointing. I think we'll have to pursue subsequent to the written answer. I think we can have a more meaningful dialogue and discussion at the committee,
yeah.
because it was not high level of response to our
I
question.
don't think we get any answers today.
Yeah, but Chair, should we not be bringing this to the attention of the Minister? Because at the end of the day, it's Minister's in charge, here's the officials coming on, not even able to answer one question, not even one question.
No, I don't think there was any questions on it. It was quite thorough. I think,
Sorry, Chair, apologies for me. The point in the packaging is an interesting one. Supermarkets there should be asked as well. So if it's packaged here, it doesn't say it originates from here, it's just packaged here. And could be a loophole to get around it. The supermarkets have a role to play in this as well, where they're sourcing their supply from.
yeah, I think there is an issue whereby meat has been processed here and it's labelled as processed in Northern Ireland, but it's not produce of Northern Ireland, and I think that maybe is an issue.
If it says
Am I right?
produced on the packet, it could really be packaged here.
Normally, it doesn't, in that situation, I think it is normally, I know I'm aware of this, but pork products, where there's one company does not, they don't process any pork from Northern Ireland, it's all imported, but it's processed. That particular company, everyone around this table that didn't know would almost be sure that it was Northern Ireland product because it's processed in Northern Ireland. That is the headline, that is the catchphrase, but in actual fact it is not
But they,
produced in Northern Ireland.
They will not hide that fact, nor did they when we went to visit them, because they told us that day. They said that day 80% is their own pig imported.
That particular company, I think, imports quite a few bit from Southern Ireland.
I went
Yeah.
to their own places in Europe, and they talked about Europe, their farms in Europe.
I think, Chairman, that's the reason I posed the question. What is the role and function of the LMC, the Livestock Marketing Commission? Because obviously they're a semi-state body, and farmers would expect that they would have some sort of role in relation to making sure that the interests of the Northern Ireland farmer are protected.
Yep.
And it's the same in the meat plants. The public at large and the farming community at large are dependent on the meat inspectors provided by the public authority to make sure things are not happening wrong toward or questionable. And I'm not totally convinced that they're rigorous, sufficiently independent, and sufficiently motivated to challenge when they see things that are not proper.
Should we write to the LMC too on the issue? Anyone, any thoughts on that? Do no harm, sure wouldn't?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Chair might do no harm if we invited them at some stage again.
Maybe even, yes, LMC, maybe an invite, but yes. Do you want to wait the response of the department before you write to the LMC, or go ahead and write to the LMC?
No, run parallel with each other.
Yeah, okay, parallel of that, right to the LMC on the issue, yeah. Okay, members, the minister's coming in about less than 10 minutes, so we move on. Agenda item 6, written briefing DARD SL1 on the European Maritime and Fisheries Fund Financial Assistance Regulations 2015. And for our members, the memo from the clerk at pages 47-48 and papers from the department at pages 49-75. Can I advise members that the regulation to establish a European Maritime and Fisheries Fund, EMFF, aims to support implementation of the Common Fisheries Policy reform. The regulation will enable DARD to provide financial assistance to the fishing industry to the value of €13.4 million. The regulations will set out the rules for applying for assistance, how applications will be dealt with, and the procedures for making payments, appeals and powers to recover financial assistance. Can I seek comments from members? Members content that the regulations move to the next legislative stage?
Yep.
Okay. Agenda item 7, oral briefing, or pre-consultation tuberculosis examination and testing scheme amendment order. Advise members that after reading the papers provided by the department, I look took the decision to request that the committee receives an oral briefing instead of a written briefing. The reason for this is that the department are not following the standard procedure for dealing with the proposed amendment, and I feel it is necessary that oral explanation is provided to the committee. I therefore defer this agenda item until next week's meeting on the 30th of June 2015. Members content with this decision?
Right.
Okay, members? Agenda item 8, written briefing Dard beef sector suckler cow industry. Members will recall that they requested a briefing from Dard Department regarding what it is doing to support and assist the beef sector and suckler cow industry. With my agreement, Dard suggested that it provide a written brief in the first instance and refer members to the written brief from the department, which has been tabled alongside a table paper from the UFU on this issue. The paper from the department outlines the issues affecting the local beef sector and the action taken by Dard and the Minister to assist, including assessing the USA beef market, beef data and genomics, RDP and research, education, training and communication and transparency within the supply chain. I know members haven't got probably looking through this written brief, so do we want to look at it and discuss it maybe next week? I think it's unfair to expect everyone to sit and read this, and it's only been tabled. Yeah.
Okay, we'll revisit it next week, John.
Pardon?
Then make a response next week.
Okay, I think so. Okay. Okay, members.
Chair, we respond next week?
Yes, we'll have a look at that next week. Yeah, okay. Come back to that. Is that okay? We'll give people time to look at this, digest it, okay?
Yeah.
And refer members?
There's one part on it, on the genomics,
Yes.
Yeah.
and I think we'd need to find out the equivalent in the south. Could they take that as an example?
Yeah, well, doesn't do no harm. I think we're always aware of some of what happens down there. Yeah, that's
We
okay.
could find out how many people are in the scheme,
That's
how
okay.
much they actually getting each out of it.
I think that information should be easily available because I did see it somewhere the other day. That
Yeah.
just, yeah.
When you find out about
Farmers Journal had an article.
You're right, that's where I've seen it probably, yeah. Actually, it was surprising to you, there's quite a number now, yeah.
Big number.
Agenda item 9, correspondence, can I refer members? The only item of correspondence received at pages 112 to 117. Are members content to action correspondence as suggested in the index sheet at pages 111? Okay, members. Agenda item 10, forward work programme. Can I refer members to the draft forward work programme at pages 119 to 120? I remind members that we agreed to consider a visit to the National Flying Championships, and to date 2 members have indicated that they wish to attend, Ian Millen and Oliver McMullen. Committee staff intends to finalise the arrangements for the visit the next few days, so can I ask if any other members wish to attend? Can they indicate to the committee? Okay. Other members. I remind members that the visit to Athby Lochgall will take place on Thursday at 2 p.m. A visit pack has been left to those members who indicated their intention to attend. Okay.
Chairman, can I just raise one point there? You see the way we get correspondence tabled and then we can't discuss it on the day, put it back to the following week?
Well, I'm not saying you can't discuss it today if you want to take time to do that, but I thought it's quite lengthy and it
Yeah,
just...
no, that's the point I'm making, Chair, you're quite right. Could we not try and get that stuff earlier to us, that we can discuss it at the meeting on the week we get the stuff, instead of having it in front of us to keep it a full week before we discuss it again?
Well, I might be wrong on this. By the way,
We're on the agenda next week and then you're lengthening...
Stella has been off sick from this morning, so this may be only... When did it come in? Just come in this morning, this paper, so the staff couldn't get it to us any quicker. Is that okay? So, okay. Can I seek agreement then for the forward programme? Everyone happy enough?
Yeah.
We then have a briefing now in a few seconds from the Minister herself, so we'll maybe just she should be here in a few minutes, so I don't think there's point in on to that. Yes, right, that's no point in doing that. We have an agenda in closed session at the end of the meeting after the Minister's brief in relation to a special advisor, okay? Minister should be... Yes, see it now. That's okay.
I'd shut her down.
Chair, we have a budget to off the on Thursday, 25th.
That's right,
I'll not be at that.
day after tomorrow.
I'll not be at because we are doing that inquiry and it could be all day. Could be into the afternoon.
Just email it to me. On my own. I don't have an iPad in. You see them things around.
Is it just your...
Edwin at edwinpouch.co.uk.
Where's the pack on that? Where's the pack on it? For Thursday?
I didn't see anything yet on this sitting in my office. And handed out. You okay? You okay? Not beyond up on now.
Are you going on Thursday?
Yes.
I hope to.
And he's going, who else?
For the minister's briefing.
Yeah, we're starting to go, aren't we? Yeah.
Edwin go? You able to go on Thursday?
No, I'm not, no.
No, it's Edwin, yeah.
I'll go.
I need a
I'll
lift.
come to Ireland.
A bit further afield.
I may need a lift.
That's right.
Go on the bike.
But was there a package for that, or no?
It's going to be given out, yeah.
What's going to be about?
All right, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Spot I was up 15 years ago at it. Facility.
Right.
Tell me then about how much spray that is used in apples. They spread 10 times in a year.
At least.
Actually done genetic modification. Wouldn't require.
Was okay for it. The minister, just check another time,
Get me back.
To get the word.
or,
Down the stairs, lad.
you know, you can spend 10 minutes.
In the end of that too.
We felt there's not much point going into closed session and then back out again for the minister if she was going to come fairly soon, you know. Well, wait one more second. I just imagine after past, so I'd be surprised if it'll be near enough in time.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Priest, were you going to revisit them?
No, no, thank you.
Thank you.
No, I can't, no, I could. I don't think I'd be going, no.
Yes, we're going to do it now, yeah. I understand you just want to take a photograph before we start. Is that the case or not?
We were going to, but then
Everybody,
because
you
it
know.
was late, I thought I wouldn't hold you back anymore, so.
That's okay. No, and just before you, can I say, we move on to agenda item 11. We have the oral briefing from our Minister. Can I welcome Michelle O'Neill, Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Noel Lavery, Permanent Secretary, Louise Ward Hunter, Head of Central Policy Group. We have David Small, the Head of Service Delivery Group, and we have Robert Huey, Chief Veterinary Officer. You're all very welcome. And we'll, by the way, the briefing paper from the Minister is pages 123 to 129 for those that are looking for that briefing paper. Okay, and the Minister will brief us on the DARD Corporate Plan 214 to 216. So we'll just ask you to lead on.
Okay, thank you, Chair, and great to be here again. What I was going to do today was just update the committee on how I and the department are responding to obviously the very difficult financial environment, and just to deal with some of the key issues for the different sectors, just and the issues they've been facing over the last year. Our primary production sectors obviously face very difficult conditions. I know that farmers have had, and so I'm sure the committee is very alert to the fact that farmers have had a very tough time last year and in the first half of this year with the specific sectoral issues in the beef, dairy and pork and lamb sectors. My response to that has been to cut costs in the department, to focus on trade-related issues, to prioritise and maintain support to the industry, and to continue to develop sustainable local communities. Chair, what I want to speak about first is around efficiencies. As the committee will be aware, DARD is required to deliver savings of 29.9 million in the 15-16 financial year. And as I said to committee previously, this is an unprecedented reduction that will impact the services that we deliver now and in the future. During the budget process, we've taken a very balanced approach, ensuring that we considered our operational costs in the first instance before considering programme expenditure. You'll be aware also that the Executive has agreed to reduce the number of departments to 9. This will see the establishment of the Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs. The new department presents an opportunity to develop a number of synergies which exist among the functions that will come together. It will provide an opportunity to work more efficiently and ultimately to provide better, more cohesive services to citizens. Already a range of reviews have been commissioned, including inspection, advisory functions, customer contact and corporate services. These reviews will assess the current approach and develop recommendations for greater efficiency going forward. I want to develop a department that is responsive to the needs of the industry and delivers maximum value for money for the taxpayer. I'm particularly keen the department builds on its use of technology, and we've seen a significant improvement this year in the number of single applications completed online. Out of just over 27,000 applications received before the deadline in May, nearly 13,000 of those were submitted online, which represents 47% of the applications received. I see this period of change as an opportunity to streamline and introduce more efficient and more effective ways of operating. I'm confident that our change programme will help us to become a more modern, leaner and digital organisation. Secondly, then, Chair, I want to focus on trade. I want to start with animal health issues, as these are fundamental to trade and to our competitiveness. In March this year, we submitted an application to the EU Commission for officially brucellosis-free or OBF status. We hope to have that status granted by the end of the year. Attaining that status will allow us to progressively reduce our control measures. While the majority of the programme changes cannot commence until after we attain our status, I have looked at some measures that we can introduce in advance. Following consultation on a future brucellosis testing regime, I have directed my officials to introduce biennial testing for beef herds from next Monday, the 29th of June. The downgrading of routine brucellosis surveillance is in line with the EU directive that prescribes testing requirements and comes ahead of original plans to implement change. So I'm delighted that we have reached the point where my veterinary officials are content to recommend its introduction. I also intend to abolish pre-movement testing, hopefully in September, which will mean that cattle moves internally here will no longer be subject to brucellosis testing. The message is, however, that farmers must continue to take all possible measures to maintain disease freedom and continue to report all abortions to their local veterinary office. These early measures will provide a welcome boost to the industry and all those who have worked really hard in terms of the eradication of brucellosis. This change to the testing regime is just the start of a new landscape for brucellosis controls. We plan to phase in changes successively over the next few months, the timing of which will depend on the response from the EU to our application. I anticipate major savings for the industry and taxpayers through the gradual dismantling of the brucellosis scheme as we move forward. This is a good place to be for our industry. Of course, all animal welfare issues are high priority for me. Removing disease and maintaining disease-free status gives new markets confidence in the health status and the quality of our food, opening doors to new opportunities as well as contributing significantly to increased efficiency and competitiveness of the sector. The current cost of disease is unsustainable, which is why I am committed to working towards the progressive reduction and eventual eradication of bovine TB. I look forward to publication in the coming weeks of the TB Strategic Partnership Group's interim report. It's vital that everyone understands that the scourge of TB can be addressed and that all concerned must work in partnership to tackle and eradicate this disease. I understand that you will receive a detailed briefing from my officials on the TB TVR programme and also from the TB Strategic Partnership Group at next week's meeting. Eradicating diseases such as brucellosis from cattle, Ajewski's disease from pigs underline what can be achieved when we work together towards common goals. I've been working hard, as have my officials and the industry, in enhancing the animal health of our herd, which in turn helps develop economic opportunities. This was evident whenever I travelled to Beijing this month, where I was able to thank Chinese personnel for the recent inspections of the north and to discuss progress in our applications. Our meeting was very productive and I'm pleased to report that they were impressed by our high standards of pork production. We will shortly receive the inspection report and I look forward to the north being approved for export. On my return, I attended the inauguration of the new Belfast-based Chinese consulate, and it was great to hear that the Chinese Foreign Minister confirmed that they are willing to work with us to strengthen agricultural cooperation, import more agricultural produce from the north and boost two-way investment. The work doesn't stop there. We're already preparing to host inspections later this year to approve premises to export to the United States market. We held a mock inspection last year led by the ex-US Agriculture Department inspectors, and the findings of their audit are being used to ensure that we are fully prepared for the actual inspection. We're also in the fortunate position to have agreed that the US will inspect our lamb processors when visiting the north. This is in anticipation of the US lifting their ban on EU lamb later this year and will mean that we will not need to host another inspection before exports can commence. This puts us in an advantageous position on the matter compared with other member states who have only hosted a beef inspection. There is recent significant interest amongst our beef industry in exporting to the Philippines, and I'm pleased to report that the Filipino authorities have recently clarified their intention to inspect our establishments before the end of 2015. My officials have completed a questionnaire on our pork controls to progress their access to the Australian market. My officials continue to press for the required approval inspection to take place in late 2015 or certainly early 2016. Chair, I want to make a brief mention about my concerns about the damage and impact of mandatory country of origin labelling at member state level. I'm doing everything that I can to support solutions to the current situation and to head off any potential problems for other products in the future. I've been in regular contact with Minister Coveney in the South on labelling issues that affect both parts of this island in order to seek a resolution to specific issues in the sheep sector. My officials have held a series of constructive meetings with officials in the South, as well as EU Commission officials in Brussels, DEFRA officials and Food Standards Agency officials in the North. I also discussed the impact of the country of origin labelling with Commissioner Hogan during his recent visit, and I've written to DEFRA, Secretary of State, and to the EU Commission outlining the unique circumstances of agri-food businesses on this island and making the case for greater flexibility in labelling of our local products. Elizabeth Truss has replied, that's the DEFRA Minister, she's replied positively to my letter, and I'm pleased that she's offered her support in finding a solution to the problem. I'm awaiting a reply from the EU Commissioner. 2 Commission reports on the scope of extension of mandatory labelling were discussed at last week's Agriculture and Fishery Council meeting in Luxembourg, and ahead of that meeting I submitted my views to DEFRA on the position in the north of Ireland. I also contacted DEFRA Minister George Eustace and the Scottish and Welsh counterparts to reiterate my view that the maximum flexibility should be afforded to our food industry to label their products according to our own traditions and marketing practices. I remain fully committed to finding a solution to the labelling difficulties that work for everyone, and I will continue to press for flexibility for local products. I would like also to mention the ongoing work that's being taken forward by Animal Health and Welfare NI in conjunction with my officials in order to facilitate making the BVD eradication programme compulsory. In many respects, this project has been breaking new ground and of course has thrown up a number of challenges which have had to taken some time to work through. In particular, I would like to highlight the positive contribution that the industry, both the dairy and beef sectors, are making to this work. I am hopeful that any remaining issues can be successfully resolved shortly and that I will be in a position to legislate later this year. Thirdly, I want to emphasise my priority on maintaining support to the local industry. On Going for Growth, I know that along with the Committee for Enterprise, Trade and Investment, you were recently given a comprehensive update on the implementation of the strategy by the Chair of the Agri-Food Strategy Board, Tony O'Neill, and from Department officials. I don't need to repeat these messages, however, I will say that there are a significant number of actions from the Going for Growth which fall to DARD, and I can report that these are progressing well on a range of fronts. I look forward to being in a position to announce further progress and key actions in the for the sector later in the year, and industry too will need to play its part. I am also very conscious of the pressure on prices over the past number of months, and I've been meeting with producers and processors, lobbying the banks, making representations at EU level, and engaging with my ministerial colleagues in the South and Scotland and in Wales. The financial difficulties reinforce my determination to make the best use of the Rural Development Programme and the Going for Growth initiatives as we seek to build a resilient industry. I've indicated they intend to bring together all elements of the supply chain to take stock of the current situation and to consider how to address the strategic challenges ahead, including building stronger supply chain relationships and further encourage the sourcing of local products. The single farm payment and other subsidies are an important part of the overall farm incomes, and over the last 10 years the single farm payment scheme has delivered over 2.5 billion to local farmers. Single farm payment has now been replaced by the basic payment scheme, and members will be well aware of the scheme's greening requirements, the young farmers payment and the proposed ANC constraint scheme, which replaces LAFACA for the severely disadvantaged area land. The new basic scheme will continue the vital provision of funding to farmers, and I have invested significant staff and IT resources to ensure that the new scheme is administered effectively. Fourthly, I am committed to continuing to develop and sustain local communities to promote equality of opportunity. Sure, you and members will know that we are well underway in the implementation of the new CIP, including the Rural Development Programme. I am conscious of the vital funding that this would provide to people and organisations in rural areas, and I am committed to ensuring that the implementation goes as smoothly as possible. On the RDP last year, again the Chair and the Committee is aware that I secured executive agreement for the budget of up to 623 million for the next programme, including up to 250 million of national funding for our proposed Farm Business Improvement Scheme. We are currently in a process of negotiation with the Commission as we push for approval of our draft programme, ideally by September. The Commission so far have approved 51 out of the total 118 new rural development programmes across the EU. This leaves a further 67 programmes to be approved, including our own. In parallel, we are also continuing to work on the necessary business cases and the design of the proposed schemes in order to start to open schemes as soon as possible once the necessary EU business case approvals are in place. I have prioritised the LEADER programme. This initiative within the RDP will allow the newly formed local action groups more flexibility regarding how they allocate their funding amongst the themes to meet the identified local needs. The animation process to form the new LAGs was completed last year, and over 2,000 people expressed an interest in being social partners on the new LAGs. The total number of social partners will be 118, with board sizes ranging from 16 to 25. The boards have submitted their composition forms to the Department for Scrutiny and Completeness Checks. They will be invited to draft an interim local development strategy for their areas, and once assessed, it's hoped to have signed contracts with the LAGs and initial interim funding allocations in place as early as possible after the Commission sign-off and the necessary business case approval is in place. This is great progress and shows that there is great interest out there for people to have their say on how funding is invested in the rural areas. I intend to deliver approximately 11% or around 70 million of the programme allocation through the 10 local action groups. Turning to tackling rural poverty and social isolation framework, the measures supported by the framework focus on 3 priority areas for intervention: access poverty, financial poverty and social isolation. I see this framework as a key driver in helping to deliver on my vision for a thriving and sustainable rural economy, community and environment. Through working with other departments, agencies and stakeholders, £16 million of funding over the past 4 years has been used for the development of initiatives such as Assisted Rural Travel Scheme, Farm Families Health Checks Programme, funding the Rural Support Charity, the installation of heating and insulation systems, building capacity through community development support, maximising access to grant benefits and services in rural areas through the MARA project, funding for the installation of broadband in rural areas, a project to assist the elderly isolated, the Rural Challenge Programme, initiatives to enhance rural youth employability and entrepreneurship, and projects to address mental health and wellbeing issues relating to rural dwellers have all made significant impact on the lives of thousands of people. 4 million has been added to the programme for government target in 15-16. Funding of many existing projects will continue while new initiatives are continually being scoped. The new Rural Micro Capital Grant Scheme has recently closed for applications, and this programme is designed to provide financial support to rurally based community-led voluntary organisations to help improve or develop their facilities or their assets. An evaluation of the Tackling Rural Poverty and Isolation framework is currently underway. This evaluation, along with recommendations that were made by this committee in its review of the framework, will be key documents for consideration when the new framework is developed for consultation later this year. On redistributing public sector jobs, I was very pleased that the successful relocation of Fisheries Division to Downpatrick took place on the 8th of June. The Forest Service is on track to move to Enniskillen by September, Rivers Agency to Lochary campus of Caffrey by June 2016, and the remainder of the department headquarters to relocate to new buildings in Ballykelly in 2 phases, 2017 and 2020. The planned application for the new development at Ballykelly was submitted to the Causeway Coast and Glens Council on the 30th of April, and this is a very significant milestone in the relocation programme, and it will hopefully clear the way for the contractor to be appointed by the end of the year to allow necessary construction works to begin at the site next year. I believe the fair distribution of high quality public sector jobs will strengthen rural economies and open up opportunities for rural dwellers. So, to close, Chair, I'm confident that we're making huge progress across a range of our responsibilities. That's very much against the backdrop of financial constraints which we all have to work within. So I'll finish there, and I'm happy to take whatever questions the committee may have.
Thank you very much for your comprehensive presentation, Minister. Abby, first of all, can I welcome the brucellosis, hopefully eradication, should be announced soon. I didn't pick up right just what you had said. At what stage is it anticipated that pre-movement testing will end? Are we at that stage yet?
September.
September this year?
Yeah. Obviously, we're waiting for approval of the from the Commission, but our intention would be that will be happening in September.
You must get that approval first before you are not.
Not for pre-movement testing. We can move on, and it's our intention that September is the first time the earliest time it would be safe to do so.
Is that beginning of September, end of September?
Oh, William.
The end.
September. A bit early autumn.
Well, I'll declare it to spin a farmer myself, okay? It has been costly to the industry over the last number of years, and the farmer, not only the cost, but the inconvenience. Farmer wanted to bring a batch of animals to a factory or to the mart, live mart. He had of course get pre-movement testing, which was not only the cost, but there was big inconvenience there. So I welcome the fact that.
Minister, if I could just clarify for the Chair, that's pre-movement testing, but not pre-export testing.
I would understand that.
That would take a little bit longer.
Yes, but I would understand. The live exporting would be small numbers of animals, I would have thought.
But it will be annoying, to farmers. But we'll try to minimise the difficulty to farmers because they'll still have to pre-TB test anyway for export, so it can be done at the same time.
Okay, certainly I welcome that. Moving on to the situation, and we're all aware of the cutbacks within your department. Are you still confident that our basic farm payments can be paid out in time this year, Minister?
I am. You know, I've been consistent in making that point. We're working very hard, given all the changes that we've had to implement around the new Common Agricultural Policy, but certainly this is a priority area for me to make sure that we have our payments in time and at least match the targets that we were able to, the very positive targets that we were able to reach last year. Notwithstanding all the, you know, all the difficulties that the industry and every sector are facing, I think one of DARD's key roles is making sure that we are able to support the industry where we can, and particularly in relation to single farm payments. That's an area where is a priority for the department.
Yeah, believe it or not, there are rumour mills out there, and I have had phone calls from farmers panicking at this stage already, because given the low farm gate prices, farmers that will be really, really depending on their single farm payment this year. So coming in time will be vital for many farmers.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. And just to say that it's my priority to make sure that we have payments made in time.
On eradication of TB, we don't seem to have made much headway there, and just come before the committee last week that there's an extra $4.5 million needed for this year's compensation costs. I know we have our TBR project and all the rest, but we haven't made much headway, and in actual fact, I suppose the rate has went up in recent times. What?
Yeah, I mean, happy to pick up on that. I mean, the rate has risen, and there, I suppose, a number of reasons for that. Not least the level of response testing, but also because there's been more severe interpretation of the skin test, which I think has led to, or certainly contributed to, the rise that we've seen in the stats. But we have obviously our EU eradication plan in place, and I know that next week you're going to have a very detailed presentation from the TB Strategic Partnership Group. They have done an immense amount of work and have really engaged with the industry around looking at what are the challenges, where can we be applying pressure, what more can we be doing to eradicate this disease. And I know that they're going to present to you, I think, their interim report next week, and you'll be able to have full scrutiny of that. But there are, for me, there's an issue for us all to grapple with, and that's for government and for industry to deal with, around attitudinal change for us. How do we work together? How do we take on all the issues that are there, and how can we get to a stage where we eradicate this disease? So there will be an opportunity next week just to really explore all of the issues that have been identified as part of the interim report. Do you want to say anything, Robert, just on?
Chair, we accept that what we've been doing for the last 20, 30 years in TB hasn't got the results we'd all like. I'm enthusiastic about the direction we're going. There are a number of initiatives coming forward, not just the TB Strategic Partnership, the TBR, but even things like procuring tests and how we're going to take the whole programme forward. We have to do something different. I would ask that you consider that the report in its whole, as I'm sure you all will, it's important to read the whole report and not just go for the bit. What are they doing with wildlife? What are they doing with compensation? It reads as a whole, and it is a whole programme. And it's built upon the point the Minister made about a change of attitude from everyone, including ourselves in government, private practitioners, farmers, as to how we deal with this disease. And primarily, recognise that this is a disease. It's not a programme. It's a disease we're trying to control. And start from there. And it's by working together, as we have with other diseases like BR, like Ajeski's, that actually I think we make some difference with this. But I accept that the disease is going in the wrong direction at the moment. We're at 6.6 of herd incidence. Last 20, 30 years has spent its time between 5 and 7%. We need to do something different. It's a chance to do it.
Okay. Yes, I think most of us would accept that we haven't done enough. I mean, down south, we had the committee from the Republic up visiting us, and they had told us that on that occasion they are looking at the possible cull of deer, even to deal with the TB problem. There's very high incidence of TB in deer. So
there's a particular problem in County Wicklow, up in the hills.
Yeah. So I think we have to look and be more positive about this disease, because it just continues to rumble on. Every time we think we're getting somewhere, we end up back in the same place.
And it costs an enormous amount of money. I'm very cognizant of that.
Okay. Joe Byrne.
Chairman, thanks. And Welcome, Minister and your officials. Obviously, you've given a very comprehensive report on the wide remit of the department, but can I focus purely on the strategic issues? In terms of the joint meeting with the Delhi Committee last week, we ascertained that the bottleneck at this juncture is the fact that the RDP programme has not yet been signed off. And therefore, I ask you, in terms of going for growth, is there a finalised implementation plan? Who's in charge of it? Who's driving it? And when can we see, let's say, the Farm Business Improvement Scheme up and running?
Okay. Well, obviously, we're working very hard with the Commission. The Commission had responded to our rural development programme when it came forward. They had made, I think it's 150.
Well over that,
No,
Minister.
sorry, yeah, okay.
Yes.
Significant number of observations.
Yeah.
And we've been working our way through all of those with Commission officials.
Yeah.
We're actually at a very advanced stage now, and we hope to be putting our final programme back to the Commission, which is a very significant step forward in terms of getting our approval. We'll hope to be putting that to them over the next number of weeks. They have their own internal processes to go through, which will take, I'm told, a number, maybe up to 2 weeks. Then after that, we hope to be moving to the stage where we're able to, if they have any more issues, but we're still on target that we're hoping to have our approval by September. Alongside that, so we're not just sitting back and waiting for the rural development programme to be cleared at European level, we are developing business cases. I'm aware that Tony O'Neill did raise concerns with you last week, and that's the point you're referring to around the opening of the schemes, and when we hope to see that, and maybe was there any delay from DARG's point of view, but I can assure you that we're working up our business cases, we're working with DFP, we're working through all our processes that we are in a position to be able to open the schemes as quickly as possible after we receive Commission approval. On the timetable for the Farm Business Improvement Scheme, Louise, can I remember the moment?
Yes, I'm sorry, Minister, I just don't have that in front of me at the moment, but I can come back to you on that. I think the critical issue is we couldn't assert anything just at this stage until we get formal approval from the Commission, and the critical issue is we must also get all the individual cases through DFP. Happy to come back on that.
And I think I just referred to the wrong official, so it'll be David just around, because obviously in the lead in till the opening of the scheme, we've got the knowledge transfer. We've also got the other areas of work. So maybe
there are 4 elements really under the Farm Business Improvement Scheme. The first one is the knowledge transfer scheme, which will be delivered through discussion groups. All of the work in terms of developing the scheme, developing the measure, developing how that will work in practice is being taken forward in parallel to the work on the business case. Our hope is still that scheme will open in the autumn. I'm not going to pin it down to a particular month, but we are working very hard on the business case and the scheme development requirements. That scheme we hope will open over the next few months. The other 2 related elements of that are an innovation measure and a cooperation measure. Again, we're developing how those 2 measures will work in practice, and developing the business cases around those 2 elements. Those aspects will be delivered externally, so we will also have to go through a procurement process. But our estimate at this stage is that those aspects will open early next year, and then the bigger element is the big capital investment scheme, which everyone is interested in. We are working very hard on the business case requirements on that. Those are very, very significant because there's so much spend involved. It's a very, very large scheme, and we are aiming for business case approval later this year, probably towards the tail end of this year, with as much progress as we can make by the end of the year to enable the scheme to open sometime early next year. But again, I don't want to be pinned down to a particular month, but that is a very, very large scheme. We have done a bit of work around farm needs assessment, and that's to try and help shape and inform the shape of the scheme. And all of the other stuff I've talked about in terms of knowledge transfer, innovation technology, cooperation measures are designed to try and help farmers position themselves so that they can put forward very strong applications and business proposals that can then come in onto the capital grant scheme. But the Farm Business Investment Scheme is just one aspect of going for growth, and we're doing an awful lot more around things like the Agri-Food Processing Scheme, which we're also developing in parallel to all the other work. CAP implementation is also a big element, obviously, because we need to support, continue all of the support that's delivered through the CAP mechanisms. We're continuing all the work in terms of education, lifelong learning through CAFRE, which is a big element of Going for Growth, and the importance of education, upskilling, lifelong learning is well recognised throughout Going for Growth. So there's a whole range of stuff being taken forward in terms of Going for Growth. Foreign Business Investment Scheme is one that a lot of people have an interest in because there's a big capital element to that, but there's an awful lot of activity taking place in parallel.
Just to say, I'm also, along with the Deputy Minister, meeting the Agri-Food Strategy Board over the next number of weeks, just to, I suppose, just to discuss where we're at with the key actions. Now, a lot of the asks were off various departments, but it's fair to say the majority of them were off DETI and DARD. I'm quite pleased in terms of the progress that we have made around not just developing these schemes and the key asks. Obviously, the Rural Development Programme is the key tool for delivery for DARD, but alongside all of that, there's quite a number of other areas of work where we have already been successful and delivered on the asks. Particularly around looking towards new markets. I've referred in my opening remarks around the potential that's there, the recent trip to China. Also around appointing, one of the key asks was around appointing the TB Strategic Partnership, around a land use expert working group, carrying out the whole needs farm assessment, as David says, increasing the number of postgraduate courses. There's quite a long list of things that DARD has delivered on according to the key asks of the Agri-Food Strategy Board, but obviously it's something that, whilst it's a strategic vision and there are key asks, it's something that we keep under review.
Yeah, Chairman, I appreciate that, but I think in terms of farmers on the ground, they want to know when will there be a finalisation to, in particular, the capital investment scheme. Because if we want an efficient, effective agri-industry, then the primary producer must be given the tools to try and produce farm produce in its most efficient and effective way. And I'm concerned that the capital investment scheme is a bit slow. I note that you're going to issue a progress report signalled for the 31st of March 2016 on Going for Growth. I'm worried about the timescale slipping, and I have to reflect the concerns of the farming community in that regard. The single marketing organisation, who's setting it up, who's in charge, who's funding it?
Okay, just to pick up on your first point around, I also engage with farmers regularly. I've just, over the last number of months, was on a number of roadshows, and one of the issues that significantly constantly came up was the issue of when is the Farm Business Improvement Scheme going to open. I've never given a commitment that it will be before September. So David outlined the areas of work that we want to engage with farmers around, helping them identify their own needs so that they're well equipped to bid into the programme whenever it opens up. So I'm very conscious of that, and I can give an assurance that it's my intention to open it up as quickly as possible, but also to have that groundwork done with farmers in the run into it so they're able to bid into the programme. On the marketing organisation, DETI is in the lead, but obviously my officials are engaged with that also. David, we can give you an update just around where that's at, and you want to,
I think Louise.
Yes, happy to comment. Sorry, on this one it is me. I'm happy to comment on that. Yes, DETI is in the lead, and the Agri-Food Strategy Board itself wants to have a very clear remit in envisioning it. There have been extensive visits over to Scotland and also to the south of Ireland to explore what the best model might be, and I think what is coming forward, therefore what is proposed as a single marketing organisation, is one more in line with the Scottish model, a slightly more confederated model, bringing together, effectively consolidating all the marketing and promotional activities for the industry here, but bringing together and knitting in all of the individual bodies, and clearly that would be of interest to many organisations, not least one of our own NDPBs, the LMC. So early days for the Agri-Food Strategy Board and actually driving that forward, but they're wanting to establish that fairly quickly, and my understanding was they were talking about going out to set the organisation up in a flexible model and start recruitment for a CEO. So that was the latest input I've heard.
Well, again, Chairman, I'm worried about the delay, because obviously if we're going to try and increase farm production, the real challenge is how do we sell produce beyond region, and therefore that will require a very strong marketing organisation. Who is going to fund it?
Well, in terms of the actual model itself, clearly the organisations that sit underneath it will continue with their revenue streams and that their existing revenue streams. If you're looking at LMC, it will continue to have its levy, but will be feeding in to the overarching piece. So I think that there's still continued refinement required on that, and happy to get a view from Daddy for you on that.
This gets, sorry, Mr. Byrne, to the chair. I mean, I think we'd be in discussions with DETI. I mean, I think Tony will be coming forward with proposals on the funding.
Yes.
Being Tony, he'll be quite assertive on those, no doubt. And I think we and DETI would be looking to see how they'd be funded. DETI do have some funding already in their baseline in relation to marketing, and we'd be in discussion with them. And I guess the only other point with that is, Mr. Byrne, I mean, the Minister has made significant investment in time in actually promoting trade herself, to facilitate trade. And it's not just about the organisation itself, it's in the facilitation of trade. And if I could, can I just...
I appreciate that. At the end of the day, it's going to require contracts in China or Japan or wherever. The question is who's going to go out there and do the field work, get the deals, and be sufficiently motivated to do it on behalf of the industry rather than one or two bigwigs in the processing sector.
Well, I suppose, as I said, I'm only back from China, so in terms of going out and trying to, and that's my third trip to China, where we're trying to really enhance those relationships and make sure that we can open up the market. I think the fact that the Chinese, and I'm only using China as one example because I also referred to other market examples, the fact that Chinese have a consulate here now I think is very positive. The fact that we had such a senior official from in the Minister of Foreign Affairs coming and him talking up the fact that they wanted to establish strong agricultural links. So I'll certainly be playing my role, but in relation to the marketing organisation itself and what they do, that is going to come forward from DETI. They are in the lead, not DARD. However, DARD have an impact, have a view to bring to that conversation. But when Tony brings forward the proposals, like, I'm certainly, on behalf of the board, I'll certainly be giving them full scrutiny, and like, I have no interest in trying to delay things. This is about us helping our industry to be able to grow. It's about taking a step back even and looking at all the challenges that are presented to all sectors. One of the things that we can do is to help to open up new markets, which helps protect against all the other volatility that's in the marketplace. So for me, it is a key priority in terms of what I can do, but also obviously it's a key priority for DETI. But I'm very happy to, when I engage with the board next week again, over the next number of weeks, to raise the issue of where we're at and try and get an update for the committee.
Thanks, John.
Okay. Declan?
Yes, Minister, you referred earlier there to the Rural Micro Capital Grant Scheme. Could you give me your assessment of how successful that was? I know it's quite popular amongst the community sector.
Yeah, it's been great. We've had over 400 applications come forward and are being processed, and we hope to have letters of offer out over the next number of weeks. There's been a small number of unsuccessful applications, but they shouldn't be disheartened because officials are going to work with those groups to see if there's a way for them to be more in a state of readiness for the next round of grants, which I hope to be able to open in September.
Well, Minister, you preempted my second question. Is that something that you'd be minded to do, is look at the second tranche?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can very clearly see the benefit to rural communities of having such a scheme that's easy to apply into. It's like the beauty of the Rural Development Programme and the Access 3 projects that we've seen. It's really about the community telling the department what they need and then us being able to facilitate that. So given the success, I think, of the programme and the fact that we had such a high number of people that came forward, I'd be very keen that we get it opened again then.
Thanks, Minister. Very good question.
Okay. Joanne Dobson.
Thank you, Chair. I suppose I'm declaring interest as usual. My husband's a beef and cereal farmer, but I think you already know that. Minister, thank you for your briefing on department priorities. I feel without doubt the instability in our dairy and red meat sectors primarily are a clear and present danger for our local farmers, and farmers feel that the department's constant answer to the point is going for growth. So do you recognise then the massive disjoint which farmers feel towards going for growth with so many, they feel, this is their words not mine, that it seems to have little or no relevance to their farm businesses?
No, well, I mean, I think quite often whenever you have strategies and if they're if not everybody's involved in developing them, although there was a lot of consultation and getting to the stage where we did with Growing for Growth, I think that there's always a danger that people don't feel connected. But the core of it is about growing, it's about increasing employment in the agri-food sector, but it's about growing export sales. And I think, as I said earlier, the more markets we open up, the more opportunities we open up, then the more opportunities there are for local farmers. So I suppose it's about trying to drive that home to make sure that people feel that this is for everybody. It's not just for a few. It's not for, you know, the more intensive farmer. It's for absolutely for everybody across the board. So I'm very keen that that is felt. I mean, I've heard some concerns in the past around maybe farmers feeling that maybe in board representation and maybe that was more not enough maybe producer representatives on that. And I've been very strong on putting that to the board. And when I first actually ever engaged with the board, the one thing I said that, and at the core of Going for Growth, has to be fairness in the supply chain, and everybody needs to be taken along the journey, because without working together then we're not going to be successful in what we set out to do. And I'm very, very keen to continue to do that. So I suppose for me and my role and my engagement with the Agri-Food Strategy Board, I work and I work for the interest of farmers, so I make sure that message is always very clear.
And you touched on this because farmers see it as a processor-led strategy with very little tangible. They can see benefit to them at the minute. So do you blame our farmers for being, you know, their scepticism on this? Because unless they see tangible results, and the fact that, as I said, we have the danger with the crisis with the dairy and the beef industry at the minute. They need to see results, and they need to see some results sooner. And Joe touched on this with, I think, is the next interim report next March, 31st of March 2016. That's still a long way off. I think they need to see results and need to see them soon to restore their faith on it, because that's something I hear day and daily, and not just from my own husband, but what is in it for them. They feel totally left out in the very bottom rung of the ladder with, unless they see some results, it's
yeah, I think,
worrying.
but I suppose that the strategy itself is not something that's going to give us a quick win. It's a strategy that sets us out our vision up into 2020. So there's some things that are going to, obviously, there'll be incremental change and positive benefits for the entire industry. But I set out earlier just some of the things that we may be able to achieve quite quickly, and you know, hopefully farmers can see the benefit of some of those sort of smaller areas that DARD have been able to make some positive changes on. It's key for me, and as I said, I was very clear to the Agri-Food Strategy Board. I will continue to be very clear to the Agri-Food Strategy Board. I am there to represent the interests of farmers. I am there to make sure that there should be fairness in the supply chain. That is my key, consistent and core message to the Agri-Food Strategy Board. And it is written in, and it is at the heart of the strategy itself. I mean, for example, Ian Marshall is on the Agri-Food Strategy Board. He's leading the work on genomics. There are quite a number of farmer representatives throughout the different subgroups of the board. That being said, you know, people are entitled to their views. Farmers are entitled to their views if they feel they're not adequately represented. But I can just give assurance that I make sure that we fight the corner for the farming industry. But back to my point around the entire supply chain and the need for fairness and joined-upness, if that's the right word, right across the chain. One of the ideas that I have asked the board to bring forward is how can we bring together some sort of supply chain forum. So again, to reiterate that message around that whole, if the chain doesn't work together, we're not going to be successful in our strategy. I'm very clear about that. So certainly just, I want to work with the board around bringing forward ideas that we can actually work to support the industry, and that farmers feel that they are core and central to success of the strategy, because they are.
Absolutely, and that has to be primarily the objective, and certainly farmers need to feel valued, but they need profitability as well to sustain the industry. I can touch on a point I raised earlier, and I see Louise is with you here in this presentation. What's your view, Minister, on the presence of meat packs which have no country of origin labelling being sold in retail outlets in Northern Ireland? Well, I don't know if you got a chance to. I'm sure you didn't.
No, I didn't. Sure, we just met in the quarter. So I don't know. I haven't. Nothing's been reported to me in terms of meat packs that don't have country of origin labelling being sold in supermarkets. Clearly, there would be an issue for the Food Standards Agency to be involved in if that was the case. we have very strong traceability standards, as you know, in place. I mean, we can stand over the produce that is from here. But Robert, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, because obviously if you have concerns or reports of that type of activity, then we would need to
That
be
was
alert to
something
it.
was reiterated with Louise earlier, but I was somewhat concerned by Louise and others earlier on the connection is there between your department and the inspectors and the meat plant, that seemed cohesiveness didn't seem to be there, because meat imported from Northern Ireland from outside the EU, possibly off in South America, if it's processed here with no country of origin and labelling, and maybe packaged because it's packaged in Northern Ireland, Louise was at pains to point out earlier transparency for the consumer, and certainly our local farmers jump through so many hoops, and that rightly so, that the traceability is paramount. So this was something was of great concern, because I wanted to know what reports there were from maybe your inspectors in the meat plant, and Louise has given a commitment to come back to us.
Maybe I can add some clarity to this. Beef is different from all the other agricultural commodities because of its history in BSE, where there has to be absolute traceability on every pack, no matter where processed, with the country of birth, country of where it was reared, country of slaughter, country of process. That all has to be in the pack for beef. So that's very clear. If that doesn't happen, there's something wrong. For the other commodities, it's different. And Joanne's quite right that if you import chicken from Thailand and then you make a chicken Kiev out of it, that all it has to say is this was manufactured in the UK. It doesn't have to say where the meat originated. And that was subject to reports with the Wenta Commission working group in the last couple of weeks. And they've currently rejected that country of origin labelling on the basis that it's not cost effective. Now, the reason they did that is, and this is very important, is that meats brought in fact, any agricultural commodity imported into the European Union has to be produced to the same standards as required by the European Union. If you speak to the New Zealanders or Australians, they are very sore about that, because they have to jump through the same hoops as if they were in Ireland or in the UK producing that. And those standards are audited by the Food and Veterinary Office. Same folks that come from Grange, from the EU, to audit our systems, travel all over the world and audit those countries too before the certificates for import are permitted. The same hoops as we're having to jump through to get into other third countries is done in reverse to countries wanting to come into the EU. The only difference is that one inspection gets them into the whole EU, as a marketing area, as a common market, where we have to do each country on its own. But it's more akin to US approval gets you into every state in the US. You don't have to do different approval for different states. So key points are that any agriculture product brought into the EU has been audited by the EU and found to be of a similar standard. Equivalence is the word they use.
Countries outside the EU then?
Sorry?
Countries outside the EU?
Countries outside the EU. They have to have an equivalent system to that as far as traceability is concerned, and disease and all the other systems we have. So they have to have similar identification system for their animals as we have in the EU. And the Australians, New Zealanders and other countries frankly don't like it very much, but if they want to do trade with us, that's what they have to do.
How do you explain then, Robert, certain outlets sell meat packs, for example, different types of meat at a special price with no label of origin, no details whatsoever, but yet in sale, because constituents have raised it with me, how does that get past the stringent regulations that our farmers adhere to?
I think it's maybe a separate issue in that
Sounds like a labelling issue.
it's a labelling issue, and I think it's more to do with maybe an issue we need to take up with food standards agencies. Certainly, if people are selling product that's not within the legislation that's there, that should be picked up, because it jeopardises all of the industry. It jeopardises the high standards that we have from local farmers. So I think that perhaps the issue, you might want to talk to officials afterwards, but perhaps it's an issue that we'd need to take up with food standards agency.
But no meat then, Robert, you're saying that's coming in your opinion, or that you're aware of, is being labelled, whether wrongly, whether by accident or by design, as British beef that's coming in?
No evidence of that, but if you bring in, I'm just using an example of chicken from Thailand, to make a chicken product, the only label on that will be where it was made.
Labelling
manufactured.
requirements are different, Robert, from beef.
For the meats other than beef. If it's a beef lasagna, it has to have all the details of where the beef came from.
Louise did give an undertaking earlier to check with those meat inspectors that around those issues that I have raised, and I very much
Beef labelling is a competence for DARD, and those inspections are carried out by our inspectors. All others are done by local authority for the Food Standards Agency. This is very complex, which is probably why we're better taking it outside here.
And maybe if it's useful, George, or yourself, maybe it's useful, you could do a particular, if you had time, I don't know, just a half an hour or something just on this issue, because it is quite complicated.
useful,
and it's
Minister,
different for
yes.
each, if it's different for beef and it's different for poultry and it's different for, then I think that maybe would do no harm
I
to
think
do
that,
that.
am I right in saying, Joanne, it's the beef issue that you're mainly concerned about?
Well, it's other issues, chicken as well, but primarily it was beef that was brought to my
Brought to your
attention.
attention.
Yeah.
But Robert is saying, in effect, that should not be the case, isn't that right?
But it is happening. It should not, doesn't
Well,
mean
then
that
you,
it's
you,
not
you give
happening.
the details to them.
It's a break, it's
I mean,
need to give
that's-
detail because it's breaking.
I think that would be very important that the details are forwarded to the right.
Just somewhat concerned, Chair, that it's not on your radar. It's something that
It's
Well,
not,
no-
but it's response. It's not coming to us as an issue. You've highlighted it today. We're happy to take that on and
It
to deal
hasn't
with it.
been raised with
no
the
one
department
has
at all
contacted me to
before
say
that?
there's an issue.
they haven't ever raised it.
I'm not
Not
aware
in
of
relation to
any
what we're talking
reports
about,
indicating a breach of labelling.
Well, I think, Joanne, in fairness, if no one has raised with them, it's your remit to do that now, or after the meeting, tell them
Women
the issue.
consent.
I mean, someone has to tell them if you're not aware, isn't that right?
Yeah.
No, it just seems, Chair, I'm sure I would have thought the department would have heard or been aware of it, or would have been on your radar, given your closeness to the
It's not
farmers
something
and
that has come
district.
through our inspection
If it's
process.
in butcher shops, that would go to local authority rather than to us. They carry out even the beef inspections in a butcher shop. So I say this is complex. It's difficult to do here. Let us know
But
what's
actually-
going on, and I'll look
It
at
probably
that.
could happen in butcher shops easier than some other outlets, is that right? Because I remember reading an article where in the Republic of Ireland they tasted a lot of beef, and they were surprised to the level of foreign beef that was in the butcher shops, I think.
I wouldn't like to comment.
Sure.
No,
yeah,
I
was gonna say,
understand.
I'm very conscious that the local industry doesn't be jeopardised by this conversation. I think,
No,
yeah, and I know that's not the
my
intention.
best interest or
But it's not, I'm
local
just saying that it's
industry.
not anybody's intention to do that, but I think that in the absence of knowing exactly what it is we're talking about,
I agree.
responsible, then I don't think that we should.
I do appreciate, Minister, your undertaking to maybe give half an hour commitment to this, but obviously our local industry needs a fair playing field, because we're adhering to very stringent regulations, but you need that all over.
But again, if there's proof of this, it needs to be forwarded to the right authorities, and that's the bottom line, I think, on that. If it is an issue and it is happening, it needs to be reported to the proper authorities.
But
I think we're talking here about it,
be brought
isn't
to our attention, and I think
So something
we
has
should
to
look at
happen,
it a
yeah.
bit further. Yeah.
Okay, Joanne?
Yep.
Okay, move on to Oliver McMullen.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister, for your presentation. Could you give us an update? You did touch on it earlier on your presentation, but could you give us an update on the present lamb labelling issue?
Yes, obviously, I'm doing everything within my power to be able to try and resolve the issue. The country of origin labelling obviously has had an impact in terms of the lamb issue. We've seen prices fall dramatically. I think the euro has also had an impact in relation to that. But I have engaged with Simon Coveney, with Elizabeth Truss, with the European Commission, George Eustace, the Scottish Minister, the Welsh Minister. I am really running hard at this issue because I do think that the country of origin labelling in particular is causing particular problems for the lamb sector now, but it will have an impact on other sectors, and the Commission is looking at possibly extending that further. And if that were the case, if you even take the dairy industry, for example, that would be significantly impacted if they were to make those changes, given that we send about 25% of all milk into the south. So there are major issues for our local industry, and I have, as I said, taken that opportunity to raise it where we can. Officials are continuing to engage with DAFM and DEFRA, and I have received a response from Elizabeth Truss, the DEFRA Minister, which was very positive and wants to assist and work with us around maybe bringing forward a voluntary label. The issue was discussed at European Commission Fisheries Council Commission meeting last week, and I had a conversation with George Eustace, who's the DEFRA Minister, who was speaking at that meeting, and he undertook and did raise our particular issues of concern. I was glad that the Commission, whilst not making any firm commitments, have said that they're willing to look at allowing member states and areas to have, or ourselves to have possibly a voluntary label, which would obviously be helpful for the industry. So just, we're doing everything we can.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Edwin Poots.
Thank you, Chair. Going for growth that trips off the lips quite easily and good buzz, our buzz phrase. What does it actually mean for the primary producers in terms of what will the transformational difference be for the primary producer as a result of DARD's input into going for growth?
Going for growth is going to help the agri-food industry in its entirety. It has targets clearly set out to 50,000 new jobs, 60% growth in sales, 75% growth in external sales, and to grow value added. So it's working right across the industry, and obviously key to all of that is the export-led growth. So it's getting into new markets, which opens up more opportunities, which removes a lot of the volatility for even the primary producer. So for me, there's big wins for the industry in its entirety.
So what's DARD doing for the primary producer to enable them to be a key part of that going for growth?
Well, as I said in an earlier answer, they are obviously very key to it, because if we don't have fairness and that joined upness across the supply chain, the strategy in itself doesn't work. It's not worth the paper it's written on if we don't have people who are going to produce. So, I mean, I can list for you, if you wish, all the initiatives that we have taken forward in relation to going for growth and what it means for the primary producer, which if you want me to do that, I can.
I appreciate hearing what DARD's doing, because you're right, the primary producer is key.
They absolutely are key, and I mean,
we need to enable the primary producer.
One of the biggest tools that we'll be able to use to deliver on going for growth is the Farm Business Improvement Scheme. So that's actually helping individual farmers to improve their efficiency. It's around capital support to help them to be able to do more on farm. So we're core, I think, to going for growth is around that rural development programme and the Farm Business Improvement Scheme, the Agri-Food Processing Scheme. We have taken forward a number of issues around, as I said, open up the new markets. That's certainly where I see a role for DARD. We have particularly working with industry around animal health, plant health, disease control, because a lot of the issues for industry as a whole are outside the department's control. However, there are things that are within the department's control and where we should be working with farmers. So that's back to CAFRE. It's working around knowledge transfer, it's research and development. It's looking at, particularly for, again, for the beef sector, genomics, looking at all the other things that have been set out, and going for growth strategy group is actually progressing. So there are wins for primary producer. I understand, and it's back to the earlier point that was made, sometimes maybe not every individual farmer feels that they're going to benefit from it, but certainly in my opinion they are. And my role in terms of engaging with the board, and as I said, I made it very clear from the start, I'm about the primary producer. I'm about making sure that their interests are on the table and being well aired as part of all the decisions that are being taken forward.
What's DARD's role then in terms of the key agencies that it has? So you have the primary producer out there bringing the food forward in its raw form. Obviously there is skills issues there, and CAFRE have a role to play. Obviously there is issues about how you can make the product more efficient, and the research has a role there, and clearly AFBI as an organisation. And then you move very much over to industry, which is DERI's role. How will going for growth join all of that up? And you know that my view on and it's made it clear over and over and over again, I deplore what is being done in terms of research, and I heard what you said in relation to the cuts that AFBI will be facing. Cuts that actually DARD are planned to AFBI are much greater than the cuts that AFBI will be facing, and I think that has been good and will damage the organisation and damage the product. How do you bring all of those issues together, and how does DARD, along with DERI, oversee that we have that continuity?
At the end of the day, you won't get, the strategy sets out all the targets. They set out where we want to be in 2020 for the industry. We can't get there if you don't have the primary producer. So for me, that's core. None of it works without the primary producer. So in terms of my role and my remit, I've clearly set out what my priority, and my priority is about the farmer. It's about the primary producer, and I make that very clear to the board. And all the initiatives that I'm taking forward are relevant to the primary producer. On AFBI, I mean, you did ask me the question in question time the other day. I did clearly set out that I'm working with AFBI around their strategic plan, their vision for the future up to 2020. We've now received that. We're working our way through it. And I don't think it's fair to say that, you know, and I've read different figures, and I did say this to you the other day. I mean, I've read different figures. We I think, of about £42 million of research and development programme with AFBI. That's quite significant. And in terms of the cuts that have been muted around, you know, what has been the impact of AFBI, it hasn't been anywhere near what I've read or heard in out there in the ether, or what I've read in some of the media outlets, particularly if you compare it to what the departments had to find internally. AFBI haven't been asked to find anywhere near the same figure. So unless Noel or Louise wants to come in on that, I mean, I see my role as working with AFBI around what does it look like for the future, what does the industry need for the future, what are the research, innovation, technology, what are the priorities. And I suppose it's about joining up all the dots. It's about where we're trying to get what's going for growth. Where can AFBI fit into that? Where does CAFRE fit into that? Where does all the other organisations fit into that? But I'll let...
I mean, again, I don't want to bandy percentages about, but you know, the percentage on my desk is that we've suffered a 15% cut. Ministers asked AFBI to take an 11.5% cut as part of that and set them an income target. And to be fair to AFBI, they've stepped up to the plate and they've responded in setting themselves an income target. They've got a plan to deliver this year. It's difficult, like it is for us all, when we're facing into VES and those cuts, but I think it would be wrong to say that AFBI has borne a disproportionate cut. And the board has responded in a difficult year. So, I think I wouldn't agree that it's a disproportionate cut.
And you understand that farming itself is probably more depressed in 2015 than it has been for a number of years, because firstly every sector has been hit at this time.
Yeah.
Absolutely understand that, and that's why I think that, as the Minister said, important we get our RDC schemes out, because those are the schemes that are available to farmers.
And again, why it's so important that we continue to look towards new markets, because all these other issues are volatile issues: market volatility, the weak euro, country of origin labelling, pressure from supermarkets, the big retailers, you name it. All those issues are always going to be there. They're always going to impact on the industry. The best thing that we can do is to try and secure new markets so that the industry has more opportunities, and it removes some of that volatility that are there because of all the market forces.
But, Mr. Hugh was saying earlier on, the only area of labelling that really control is the beef one. So buy chicken and do some processing here, and it becomes a problem for Ireland. The same expense for lamb and so forth, that if it is imported from public, for example, as takes place quite a lot here, that happens, and I assume for the lamb that's going south of the border, that's processed down there, that becomes a product of the Republic of Ireland.
And if you look at what Europe are trying to do, even around extending country of origin labelling to other sectors, as I said, the dairy sector will be decimated if that's the case. I don't think that it's proportionate. Whilst you need to give people information, I think that there's a way for us to, whilst have country of origin labelling in place at a European level, but I think we should have the flexibility to be able to have a voluntary system in place that works for our local industry.
Okay. Tom Buchanan.
Okay, Chair. The new rural development programme, when's that going to be rolled out for application?
Are you talking about any particular element, or are you talking about the what would have been known as Access 3, so the rural development spend on the ground?
Absolutely.
We're hoping to have that open for application in September.
Hoping to have it ready for 1 in September.
Well, is it?
Yep.
It's around, yes, David.
We're aiming for around September, autumn, so that you know, the calls for applications will be opening around about that time.
Okay, fair enough.
So we have the lag. Obviously, each lag are working on their own individual area plans. We have the names submitted, and we want to work with them to be able to get that, so that they don't lose any time. They certainly have already started the animation work. If you remember Balmoral Show, they actually launched that, so there's already work ongoing actually just to get things moving, and that they're, as soon as we get our approval, that they're the first to go, basically.
Another issue, I see that you are looking, and the department are looking with the Forestry Service and one providers for wind farms, or the prospective wind farms on their forestry ground. Now, obviously, there will be a consultation carried out with local communities and all before any of that will go on the ground. But will there be any consultation with local communities prior to even putting land over, in a sense, for wind farms? There are communities out there who are really up in arms about this plethora of wind farms that's happening right round Northern Ireland, and not least in West Tyrone, because it seems that West Tyrone is what people defines as a dumping ground for these types of wind farms right around the area, and there are a lot of communities that are not happy with this plethora of wind farms around the landscape in West Tyrone. And I know Declan here and Joe as West Tyrone Assembly members are getting the same thing. Now, are there going to be any consultation with communities prior to even considering this plan for wind farm?
Yes, I mean, I'm certainly put on record that I'm committed to making sure that the work that we take forward is done in conjunction with local communities. For me, there is massive potential for us to be able to generate income with wind farms, and that can be to the benefit of rural communities. And for me, in some of the projects that I've looked at in the past, there have been pittance paid to rural communities as a result of wind farm development. I'm not interested in taking on forward any projects that would be of that nature. For me, there has to be maximum community benefits, something on the scale that's never been done before. And I really want to raise the bar, but that will be done absolutely in conjunction and with rural communities. There's a number of project sites that have been identified on Forest Service land. We have a wind farm manager in place who's actually been seconded from SIB, and work is progressing well in regard to sort of looking at the potential sites that could be used. But I'm not interested in running up against communities all the time. I'm interested in I suppose, engaging with communities so that they feel and they understand that if there's a wind farm development, that they will they would benefit significantly from it, and not on the scale that's been seen here before. And Kevin, the wind farm manager, has been working very hard to scope out the benefits and looking towards other areas that may have done this very successfully. But certainly for me, it's about collaboration with local communities.
Okay, one other question. In your June monitoring round bids, you have 4.5 million on for TV and you have 2 million on, I think, for ICT and cap reform. What happens if you don't get that?
Well, we don't know if we're not going to get it yet, so there's no point in talking in what ifs.
So you have no contingency plan in place for the TB compensation?
Well, I have no need to, and I've no need to at this moment in time. Obviously, we're going through the budget discussions over the last number of days, and we'll finalise on that tomorrow. But the June monitoring round hasn't been discussed at executive yet, so it's not for me to surmise what it will or will not do.
Yeah, so we're walking forward blindly then, in a sense that we don't get this, well, we're going to have to look somewhere else within the department.
Well, I've clearly set out my stall in terms of what I'm going to do with the 15-16 budget. Are there challenges? Absolutely, but I can only work on what I know at this moment in time.
Fair enough.
Okay, Ian?
All right, thanks, Chair, and Alter Road, and thanks very much for coming along here today. I'm going to ask you a question around the your rural proofing bill, and could you tell us how much support there you've been receiving there from local communities or rural communities?
Yeah.
And would you be confident there within this mandate, or know that you can legislate for it?
Yeah, well, we've had significant, very positive feedback actually from the consultation. Rural community groups really want to see this being brought forward. I have an executive paper which is being tabled, and I want to have that agreed over the next number of days so that we're able to meet the legislative time frame. This is a bill that very clearly from the consultation that rural communities want and rural communities deserve. So I implore all members of the ARD committee to support me in that and speak to their respective parties around, or to their respective parties even around supporting the bill when it goes to the executive.
Okay, thank you. And Chair, just if I could ask another unrelated question, regarding the TVR areas, that are part of the research. Does that include there, or can it be included as part of your research, animals that are found from road accidents and that, that would it not tie into a general picture, not just in those areas, but right across the north?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry,
go
Master.
ahead. Yeah. We're jump in. Sorry.
You're bursting to get that. Go ahead.
Sorry.
The two pieces of research and the ongoing survey we've had now for 20 years in road traffic surveys, the two things go together. Because what we're looking at is not just the animals diseased, but also their genetic makeup. So it allows us to see the particular makeup of the disease in that area within the badger population. The road traffic accident survey is a very useful tool alongside and supports TVR. So two different things, but one supports the other.
Yes, and just kind of follow up then. Is that generally known throughout the rural communities, to report, the like of badgers being killed on the roads to a particular number, to alert the department?
Yes, we have a badger hotline.
You have a hotline?
And most farmers know about it, but this will help.
Well, I don't.
I've actually just noticed yesterday
get your card in.
that the Badger Group, I think they're called the NI Badger Group, have a bit of a Twitter campaign going on around asking people to report badgers that are found on the road. So
Right, okay.
I didn't know that. I didn't see
I'll
the
get your
campaign
lucky
until last
cards.
night.
But the lucky cards.
Okay, thanks. All right, Sydney.
Yeah, thank you, Minister. Can I just go back to our colleague Tom there? I was asking about the new lags. I note that they're more or less up and ready to run when they get that final approval. The spread across the new lags, are you happy that we've got a good spread right across each and every one within their communities?
Yeah, I think that quite a lot of work was done on the ground around trying to recruit more young people, more women to the lags. The people have all been nominated, and those names are now with the department. Am I right in saying that? Or David?
Yeah, David.
And we're working our way just through that, just to make sure that is the case. But I think I'm fairly content that we've had good response and good reputation. The fact that we had David, keep right, maybe 2,000 or more people actually applied to be part of it shows that there's significant interest in the rural development programme and the rollout of the funding in local areas.
Yeah, and a very significant effort was made, as the Minister says, to try and encourage more applications from women, from young people.
That was done through the Rural Development Council?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, they assisted with that. And we are looking at the spread of representation, just to satisfy ourselves that it is a good representation.
Just as a matter of interest, the Minister, you say there's a lot of people interested, over 2,000 or what it was. The makeup of the lags is from 16 to 25. That's a minimum 16 and maximum 25, I take it. That's the way they're set up?
Oh, numbers wise?
Numbers wise, yeah.
I think you could. I thought it was 12. Maybe it is. I thought it was.
No,
I'm not sure. Board sizes range from 16 to 25.
Yeah, there was a maximum level, I think, because it needs to
I'm
be.
just wondering with that level of interest, would they be hitting mostly at the top end of the scale?
I think so.
On the 25, when the numbers come through?
Yeah.
Because it would give that wider balance there.
Yeah, I think so. I think in most cases it was up at the upper end, and as you say, that will help in terms of the spread and representation that we can.
Yes, it would give better representation possibly. Can I ask about the actual rolling out of the funding when we reach that? I come with having sat on one of the previous boards, and we always found it was maybe sometimes there's more hoops to jump through and we should really have to do. Can we see, have we learnt lessons, Minister, from those previous programmes, and we're now in a process of streamlining things to make things a lot easier for these groups or for these applications to get through and get on the ground?
Yeah, certainly we can say that. We worked very hard to make sure we did that, because you're right, that in previous programme, the current programme is run on, it would have been the same application process whether you're looking £1,000 or £100,000.
Yeah.
So I think we needed to look at all those things, and we worked very hard with the monitoring group and others to make sure that we learned lessons and tried to streamline and make things simpler as much as we possibly could.
Yeah, we worked very closely with the existing lags as well to try and take account of any views they had. Unfortunately, when you're administering a rural development programme, there are all sorts of rules and operational rules that have to be put in place. But we worked with the existing lags, and as the Minister says, the monitoring committee, to try and ensure that we have reduced the level of bureaucracy and administration as far as we can.
I think we have to try and encourage to make their applications rather than discourage them, and I think that's what probably happened in the past. Can I just quickly ask about budgets on the voluntary exit scheme? What numbers have you received for those interested now.
Yeah, we had 918 received and 355 were successful in receiving their letter. We probably would see about 150 of those going in September and then the rest over the remainder of the financial year.
Is that in line with your savings of 5.6 million?
Yeah.
Would that be what you would expect to do that?
We had sort of based an assumption of about 300 people, 350.
Yes, we had to put a profile in, and yes, it would be. Obviously, there's an attrition rate. People have the choice to accept the offer or not, and they have until the 30th of September. The first tranche have.
Well, they're spread across every department and every division.
They're spread pretty well across.
Right across the department, yes.
Yeah, right across.
Yeah.
For level playing field, as I say.
Well, yeah, I mean, so, again, but it's up to people who apply.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
But what I'm trying to get at here, there's not go by one part that it's going to be decimated because of
well, again,
the number of applications.
We sought in our profiling to deal with that, but equally, it is a blunt instrument. You know, it is. You're not actually targeting. People are applying.
Yes.
And then what we'll do is we'll have to move.
Maybe move staff to compensate.
It will involve redeployment. Yeah. But as I said, I think a key point is just to explain to the committee that people have the option to accept or not. And then we see where we go after that. But there's 150 in tranche 1 have received offers in Dard.
Okay, Stanley?
Okay, I love it.
Ian was looking back in it quick.
Yeah, just a very small one, and thank you, Chair, for letting me in here. Just want to ask you there, you know, if it's still on track for the Rivers Agency to be moved to Cookstown in 2016.
Yes, we're still on track with our programme as we set out, just for Rivers going to Cookstown. For obviously, it was very positive that we were able to announce fisheries opening on June the 8th. So we're on target for all of all the relocation projects.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. I can finish off on a couple of comments. One is in relation to the Suckler Cow beef sector, and we know that Scotland had some aid to the suckler calf premium. We had the Republic of Ireland as the genomics scheme. What's Minister, have you any proposals to help a small suckler cow in Northern Ireland, the herds?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we give it some consideration over the cap reform proposals. This issue got a bit of our in when it we looked towards a new programme and what supports we would put in place. For me, supporting the sector through a suckler scheme didn't necessarily add up, didn't stack up at that moment in time. I always said I would keep it under review. But for me, we just need to make sure we get the balance right around, if we brought forward, for instance, a suckler scheme, what would that impact on the pricing that farmers would receive for what to produce? So there was a number of issues, but I always said I would keep it under review. Genomics, I'm committed to making sure we bring forward genomics. I'm very alert to what's happening in 26 counties, but I'm glad now the Agri-Food Strategy Board, because obviously that's an industry-led scheme with departmental support. So the Agri-Food Strategy Board, through Ian Marshall, is the chair of the new subgroup, which is actually looking at this issue, and there will be opportunities for us in the future, particularly when it comes to making a change to our rural development programme. There is potential scope there for us to look towards supporting some sort of scheme, but it's very much an industry-led scheme, and I'm glad that they're looking at it, and I'm very keen to support them in it.
Yeah, I think, you know, the suckler cow is part of the fabric of Northern Ireland, you know, and I mean, the suckler cow beef, if we lose that, it will be, we talk about going for growth, but it will have a big effect on the quality of beef in the beef for the beef sector.
You'll remember at the time of when we're taking the policy decisions, we looked towards, because obviously most of the beef sector are in the ANC areas or the LFA areas, and we looked towards, you know, where would we tailor supports, and quite often when you looked at various scenarios, the support you could be given through ANC would equal what you would give through a very complicated suckler beef scheme. So we had to weigh up all those things, which we did at the time. But as I said, it's open to review, but certainly supporting the sector through genomics is something that I would like to.
I think the sector needs at least encouragement, and no better way to encourage than financial help in some form, I think, is important. On going for growth, I wouldn't be negative about going for growth. I do think that the farmer's looking forward to the business improvement scheme. Yes, he's facing a lot of challenges at this moment, probably across most sectors, but you know, I'm a farmer all my life. I know many farmers that are quite a positive bunch. So if they soon forget the hard times if they can get through it. And certainly it is difficult at the moment, but we certainly look for better days ahead. In relation to the rates of grant and the cap on grant, is that them finalised yet or still been looked at?
Well, you know, for the young farmers, for example, they would receive 50% as opposed to 40% grant aid.
Yeah.
For everybody else. So that's been
Yeah,
that's
but we,
confirmed.
we are building in a set of proposals within the business case. Now, the business case has to go through an approvals process, and all of those issues will be part of that consideration.
I personally had some concern around the cap, the cap, whereby I think it's important that as many farmers as possible can avail. I had some concerns where if a cap on the grant is very, very high, that it may mean that a small number of people can avail of most of the grant.
I think our proposal is to have two tiers.
That'll be a concern I would have.
So that we can make sure that all farmers have the opportunity to bid in.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation again and for answering all our questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I move into closed session.
This is the Northern Ireland Assembly Committee Room 30.